Alright, 1942 second edition. This is the setup. Basically I already went over with opening up the box how there was a lot more countries and a lot more going on. This is a nice little mix in between the global game and 1941. Let's start with Russia. The green chips, they do represent 3 units. When I talk about it, I'm basing it off the other 1942 edition, not the global game. So one new thing we got with Russia is you'll notice there's a factory here representing Leningrad. So that's kind of important. You don't want to lose that. And it's right on the front lines, just like the other factories. They got a fair amount of troops over here, kind of like in the other 1942 edition. They got some infantry over there. And they start with 1 sub in the north. But for the most part, they start off pretty weak compared to Germany. I do want to note that these chips, they say Axis and Allies, and they're a lot bigger, so you can tell how many is there, unlike the old chips. One great thing is it has this little indentation for a circle. The infantry fit on it perfect. They don't fall off. It's really nice. Anyway, next we'll stay on the Allies. Talk about Britain. Basically, almost the same setup. Besides this, which that's kind of like global. How you have a destroyer and a transport over there. They start with a couple fighters and a bomber, and then Egypt, they got a little force, and they got a cruiser and a destroyer down here in the Mediterranean, and an infantry in South Africa. One new thing is they have the factory in India, just like global. They got a little fleet down there, and then Australia. There's 2 countries now, about 3 infantry and a small little fleet, destroyer. Or no, it's a cruiser and a sub and a transport. So basically, the Brits are almost identical from the old one. And then we'll go to America. They got a small little fleet out here. You got a battleship, transport destroyer, a couple infantry and a fighter on the west coast. You got an aircraft carrier with a destroyer and a sub, and a fighter on Hawaii. And then in China they have 6 infantry, which is a little bit more than they started with in the old one. But there's 4 new countries. And that's another thing. It looks like there's a lot more IPCs out here, but there really isn't. French Indigo is only 2 now instead of 3. So basically, they took Burma out and they put that 1 IPC there. Okay, and then what this country used to be a 3, it's a 2 now. But if you add in this 1, it's still kind of a 3. And then with this one, it's a 2, but if you add in that, it's a 3. So basically, the IPCs are just about the same. And then what's left over is the 2 ones for China. But basically, there's a few more IPCs, but not that many, even though it looks like a lot. And then their East Coast, you got a cruiser over here, a couple transports and a destroyer, and a lot of infantry, artillery and tanks, and everything on the East Coast. As far as Japan, kind of like the Brits, their setup is almost exactly the same. They basically have an infantryman on every island. but they have 2 here in the East Indies. And instead of having 2 infantry in the Philippines, they gave them artillery and 1 infantry. Okay, this is kind of like global. In Malaya, they got 1 infantry there. And they're a little strong in French Indigo, China, which is in Thailand. They only start with 2 transports. They got a fair amount of infantry, 4 here and 4 there. But for the most part, it's the same setup as the old one. And they got a battleship, and just like they did in the old one, aircraft carrier with 2 fighters. Now the big change is Germany. Basically, Africa is about the same. You get 1 extra infantry. Their fleet's the same, battleship and a transport. Out here, though, you start with 2 subs. You can do a lot with those. Just looking at the board, you can attack this, you can attack this, or you can come here with some planes and take out their battleship. They start off with a lot of infantry, a lot of tanks, a lot of fighters. They start off with looks like 6 fighters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 fighters, 1 bomber. Their little starting fleet up here is 2 subs, a cruiser, and transport. They get some extra infantry up here for Finland. But I mean, every little group is a different country, so there's a lot more little countries in here. But if you, in a couple turns, if you can get all that on the front lines with Russia, if you don't have the threat from the Atlantic, you can really put pressure on Russia, because they start off with a lot. Got a couple tanks in France, the A gun. I mean, they you really just, I'm just holding a video here so you can see they have a lot of power. So basically, that's the setup. America, China, and Britain are all basically the same. Russia's a little different, and Germany's a lot different. They really went to the global look of making a lot of countries in Europe and putting them a lot of troops out there. Because basically in 1942, the start of that year was when the Axis was really at the peak of their power. So they really made them strong in this game. So it looks like the Allies really have an uphill battle, because it just looks like Germany is just too much to deal with for at least 3 or 4 turns. But we'll have to see. Because one of the old strategies was you could do the Japan crush. You could just build all out here with America and start taking these islands once you had a nice fleet. And then you would build a factory here in India, which you don't have to do that now. And then you would come this way, and then if you were able to, you could build a factory here with America and put a couple troops. And then with Russia, bring a little pressure this way. So you could essentially push them out of Asia, and then you had America coming through, taking the islands. And all of a sudden, Japan's crippled as far as IPCs. But I don't think the Allies can spend all that IPC out here to crush Japan when Germany is this strong. I think that might have been one of the goals, to make Germany really strong, where the Allies really do have to pay attention and can't just let them sit back and hold on with Russia. It's kind of like real life. They really had to battle both countries at the same time.